I'm Amanda, and this is Not Your Granny's Quilt Show. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode. I'm very, very excited to probably not introduce you to, but to have HollyAnne Knight on the show today. She is the founder and CEO of String and Story. She is a Badass Quilter Society sponsor, just like me, and she has some amazing stuff going on. So we talk about how she got into the business, how she got into quilting, per the usual, because that's what we do here. But just learning her story is so cool. And if you go check out stringandstory.com and look at what they have to offer, they have an online shop, but an in-person shop in Duluth, Georgia. She teaches in-person classes and digital classes. And as she says, it is her job to guide you. It is her job to guide you to stitch with confidence. So I cannot wait for you to get into this episode with us and to learn more about HollyAnne, and go shop while you're at it. Check out her stuff. See if there's any classes you'd love to learn. She does teach a wide variety of different things. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it. Let's go. Hi, HollyAnne. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm so glad we get to chat today. I was kind of worried.
Yeah, honestly, same. I'm so glad that I'm on the mend from the H&H plague and able to be here.
Yeah. Oh gosh. When as soon as I saw like all these people posting like I've got COVID, I've got COVID, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I didn't go. But I also am like, I feel terrible because I'm like, I don't know. If
It's the FOMO cure, but also
yeah,
you should come next year because it's a really fun show.
I plan to. I plan to. Because it just
Perfect.
every time. And like the last 2 years in a row, Maddie has been like, are you coming to H&H? I'm like, no, girl, I'm barely paying off QuiltCon by now. Like, I can't. But no, I'm gonna make it happen next year
It's
because I
worth it.
think
It's worth it.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's just a different vibe, and like
it is.
I just think it's something.
It has some of that same QuiltCon energy in terms of like the vibrancy and the like playfulness of it, but because
Sure.
it's only industry folks, that's the part that's different. And it's really fun to see all the different collaborations that are,
Yeah.
conceived on the show floor.
Yeah. No, that's so cool. And I think sometimes I forget, like, oh, I have a quilt business. Like I can go, like, not just the podcast, like I'm a quilter. I'm like, oh right, I could
Right.
go. Anyway, I just imposter syndrome. I don't know. Whatever.
I, that's how I felt last year. So I wasn't going to go last year. And then after QuiltCon, I felt like everyone and their mother was going to H&H. And I finally caved and was like, I have a friend I could stay with. I really just have to get myself to Chicago. And I
Mhm.
kind of walked around the show floor like, do I really belong here? Like, what? And finally, my friends were like, you've been in this industry for almost a decade. Like, what?
Yeah.
Yes, like you should, this is where you belong. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is delightful.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
think
you
that,
should be there. It's worth it.
yeah, I'm definitely putting it on my calendar for next year because it does seem like something I would like and enjoy.
Yeah,
So
it's a good
that'll
time.
be good. But well, we can get more into that later. But I like I think we've like kind of passed. Like I said hi to you last year at QuiltCon, and I saw you in passing this year at QuiltCon, but I've never like come up and been like, hi, I'm Amanda. I'm the host of Not Your Granny's Quilt Show. So
This is so great. I that was a treasure last year or last week at H&H, and I love that about this moment of like finally getting to talk with folks that I've kind of been ships passing in the night with for a while. So I'm
yeah.
glad we're finally getting to connect for real, for real.
Yeah, me too. And we're both Badass Quilter Society sponsors, so that's also
Yes.
fun. Like we're in the same little community of
Yep.
cool girls and
I was
them
about to
and
be like the
theys.
cool kids club.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, we're the cool kids. It's fine. Top
Welcome.
secret. It's not top secret, but it feels like it.
Sometimes it does, but I'm
Yeah.
like, but you can all come. So like, come on.
Yeah. But also you can come too. Yeah. It's
Uh-huh.
that like
It's an
you
open
can
invite
sit with
secret club, however that works.
whatever that means. Yeah, exactly. It's like it's a new thing. I don't know. Oh my God. That's so funny. Well, in an effort to get to know you better, I would
Yeah.
love to know how you got into quilting in the first place.
Absolutely. I kind of stumbled into quilting. So my background was in visual arts and performance art. So painting, watercolors and oils, and then dance, originally classical ballet and then ballroom in college. So I had
Oh.
creative backgrounds, but totally different than quilting and in many ways much less pragmatic than quilting.
Hmm.
But I got married very young. I got married at the end of my junior year of college. And then when I
Okay.
graduated the following year, I was already pregnant with our oldest son,
Oh no.
which was a whole thing because I was right in that terrible part of the first trimester when you're just sick all the time.
Oh
And I'm
no.
like, if I can just get across the stage without blacking out, that's the goal. But we made it. And
Yay.
after Jim was born, I had just what we later knew was postpartum depression, but we didn't know that at the time. My mom just knew that I needed a project. Like she's like, you've
Hmm.
always been this very creative person, and now you kind of don't have that outlet anymore. And I was knitting and I was kind of daydreaming about sewing, but wasn't really sure how to get into it. And so mom just showed up with this box of t-shirts and was like, why don't you Google how to make me a t-shirt quilt?
Oh,
Which
because
on the
that's an
one hand,
easy first start.
right, right. So on the one hand, I'm like, what like a wise thought to like give me this very practical thing to do. Like a very here's the boundaries of the task. Take these, make this thing. On
Yeah.
the other hand, like not an easy place to start. Like there was
No.
just so many things to learn. And
Yeah.
yet, I wish to this day I knew who had written the tutorial that I used because I
Mm.
found some blog somewhere in the blogosphere, as one does,
Yeah.
because this was, thick in the age of, blogging.
Yeah.
I have no idea who it was, but her tutorial worked and I figured out how to make a t-shirt quilt and like kind of got my brain around how a sewing machine worked. And it was this perfect storm of it. On the one hand, gave me this creative outlet, and on the other was very pragmatic. And with a newborn in the house, and I was very quickly pregnant with our second child, I needed things that felt useful. Like I needed to feel like I wasn't just making art's for art's sake, which was a total diversion from how I'd always made art. I'd always been a very art for art's sake person. And that just wasn't the season of life that I was living in. I needed it to be like gritty and useful and something somebody could cuddle up under. So I
Yeah.
made that first t-shirt quilt for mom and then started making a bunch of other t-shirt quilts for other folks because, I was a mom, I had an Etsy store. Like, this is how we did
Mm.
it. And,
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And then along the way, discovered the world of modern quilting and a
Mhm.
combination of Angela Walters' books at the local library, because I'm absolutely a library kid and went to go see what we had down at Gwinnett County Public, but also just on Instagram and fell in love with the colors and the textures and all of the things that in many ways I had loved from painting and from dance, but brought into quilting. So yeah, I fell in love hard. And I normally I'm in the shop when I do interviews and I love to gesticulate and be like, and things escalated quickly.
Yeah.
But I'm in the home studio today, so it's not quite as dramatic.
Well, it's just going to encourage people to go look at your website or go physically into your shop because you're in Duluth, yeah, in
Yes,
Georgia.
Duluth, Georgia, which is important. The warm
Yes,
Duluth.
the warm Duluth,
Yeah.
not the freezing
hmm
cold one.
Not the freezing cold Duluth. Yeah. Though I hear that one is lovely as well. And I feel like I know a remarkable number of people who live there. But yeah, the warm Duluth and everything's online. So I've told people at H&H because folks, of course, like, oh, where are you from? And I finally gave up and was like, I live in the internet.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. You're like, the internet is my home,
the
so I'm
internet. Yeah.
leaving.
So go visit me in the internet.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like, do we even have homes anymore? I don't know.
Like there's this weird ethereal aspect of our lives these days that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Oh, that's so funny. And like, what a way to start with t-shirt quilts. Like, so many
Right.
people are like, I don't do that. They're so hard. I'm like, they're not.
They're not, but they require specific things. Yeah. So I had to very
Yeah.
quickly learn about a walking foot. I had to learn about ballpoint needles.
Yeah.
This is like the one now I will use cotton thread, but at the time it was like the one instance where I would not use cotton thread.
Hmm.
Um, and then as soon as I got into making t-shirt quilts with sashing, I had to learn about things like interfacing, to learn how to use a rotary cutter that ended in blood, but we
Yeah.
learned afterward. Um, if it hasn't ended in blood, like, are you a quilter yet? We don't know.
No, I don't know. I don't think
We
so.
had
I
the
think, go ahead.
Yeah, we had this rule as ballerinas that until you fell 10 times, you weren't a real dancer. And I feel like it's kind of like that with the rotary cutter or just quilting tools in general. Until a sharp thing draws blood,
Yeah.
have you arrived? You know, that's how you evolve.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's definitely if you have not bled on a quilt, are
Yeah.
like, yeah, you're not real. I don't know. I don't, you're not
Yeah.
a human. First of all, you're not a human.
And if someone is listening and they're a new quilter and have not bled on a quilt yet, like on the one hand, like good for you for being careful. On the other
Yeah.
hand, like it's going to come and
Mhm.
just know that like we've all been there and we sympathize deeply. So
Oh
we're
yeah.
just trying to welcome you into the fold
Yeah.
via whatever this odd ritual sacrifice is that we're
I know.
describing.
Like blood brothers? I don't know. It's
I don't know.
yeah.
Something.
Yeah. Well, and I use pins to put to load my
Mhm.
quilts onto
Yep,
my long arm,
me
and
too. And I
those
bleed
things
every time.
are so sharp. Yeah, it doesn't matter how
So,
good you
and
are,
then they're thick.
they're
So it's
so
a
thick.
big wound. Like,
Yeah. And you think like, oh, you just get a little like poke and you're like, ouch. And then you're like, why is it bleeding so
why
much?
is there so much blood?
Like, oh my God, it barely touched me. Yeah. I mean, I've straight up like ripped through skin. This is so gross, but
Hmm.
whatever. And or just like a tiny poke. And I'm just like,
And God forbid you like catch a dry cuticle.
ugh.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's the
Exactly.
worst. It's the worst. But also I'm
It's,
like, I don't know. I've like
but
caught my
we've all been
finger
there.
between the
Yeah.
needle and the foot, and like it's
Yeah.
literally like pierced my finger. Like not
Oh, I haven't actually done that.
just
No,
through
you,
skin though.
yeah, it's a flesh wound.
It was a flesh wound. I literally, it happened and I was like, Mom. And she was like, What happened? I'm like 40 and calling for my mom. She was like, What? I'm like,
That's
I,
amazing.
I was like, I don't know. It just came out of my mouth. I was like, I just caught my finger in the machine and it just hurt so bad. And she was like, Oh my God, what do you want? I was like, I don't know. I need stuff. I don't know. So
I
I
love
took
that
care
that
of
was
it.
your instinct.
I just like yelled, Mom. She was like, What? Anyway,
That's fabulous. I
yeah.
feel like you should be very proud that that was the thing you yelled. I
Yeah.
would have yelled profanity. I would have used an emergency word because that is an emergency.
I mean, normally I do. So I think it's just because like she was there. And
Yeah.
like I mean it was because we used to run the business out of her house, but I bought them out and it's in my home now. So I don't
Yeah.
have I can't scream mom because nobody's gonna come, but she's just across town. It's fine.
You could still scream bomb, but you might have to dial the phone first.
Right, nobody's gonna come rescue me if I just yell it out. Anyway, it was just so funny. I was like, well, I guess I still need you. She was like, I know. I was like, okay, well, anyway, it's just so
That's adorable and I love it.
so crazy. But anyway, so okay, so you started quilting when you were having kids because you just needed something to do, which is I think like not just needed something to do, but having
But
something to
having something
focus
that
on.
stayed done, like
Yes.
everything else in my life was a cycle. Like everyone was always hungry, everyone always needed a diaper change, there was always laundry, but I
Yeah.
could sew a seam and that seam stayed done. It was
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, oh, I don't have to pick that back up. Like I don't have to
Right. I could just
re-sew
start
that.
where I left off. I don't have to do it again.
Yeah.
Delightful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, like almost maybe having something a little more challenging seems like maybe it could be a good thing in that situation because you're not just sewing a bunch of squares together where it's like, okay, you can
Yeah.
master that pretty quickly. Um,
It
but
made me
you,
feel like a whole human in the midst of kind of where my mental health was, that I was still
yeah,
someone who could like learn a new skill and make something new. And that was very, I don't know, I think that like postpartum season is such a weird one because you don't necessarily feel at home in your body because your
yeah,
body's doing all kinds of things it's never done before and like it's
yeah,
changed and all of that. And so it was a way to connect with myself because that creativity had always been a part of me. And
right.
I could kind of circumvent some of the like physical and mental discomfort that was going on and get back to this essential thing.
Yeah,
And that really helped me feel rooted and grounded in
yeah,
a hard few years.
yeah, yeah. And having two littles back to back is like,
Oh my gosh, 14 months is like a really small gap.
yeah, yeah. I can't, I
It's
mean,
delightful now. Like now they are like 9 and 10, and they are both besties and worst enemies, depending on the moment, but mostly
yeah,
besties. And it's great because I'm like, off y'all go, and they play together and do all the things. But at the time, it was so much.
yeah, yeah. I I don't have I have stepkids, but they're like 4 years apart. So,
Yeah.
but my one brother and I are 13 months apart. So like I can just
Yep.
imagine.
You've
And
lived that life.
yeah, I'm like fighting all the time with my brother and just like my mom being
Mhm.
like, I'm gonna go somewhere and you guys are gonna sit down and be quiet and
Uh,
don't talk to me. And we're like, what?
uh,
And now I'm like,
yep.
oh, I'm so sorry, mommy.
My bad.
Yeah, didn't know. Sorry.
Yeah, sometimes I look at them and I'm like, y'all can figure this out or not figure this out. I don't actually care anymore. I'm just not going to be in this room.
Yeah,
Like, I'm going to be over there and this is your business. And
yeah.
they've really just gotten to that age and they haven't quite figured out what to do with that yet. That they're at
Mm,
an age where I'm like, I'm going to let y'all cope. This is not my circus, not my monkeys.
yeah,
This is the paperclip we're fighting over. I'm going to
yeah.
exit. And they do the same thing. They're like, "What? You're not gonna tell us who's right and who's wrong?" I'm like, "No, I
No,
really don't have time for that, actually.
you guys have brains. You can problem solve. You
I'm
can
gonna
talk
go
it
cook
out.
dinner. Y'all, I don't know, take it out in the yard if you need to have a fight about
Right. You're
it."
like, I can't do this. Yeah, it's definitely a lot. And even with my boys, like, even though they're 4 years apart, like they would wrestle and get so rowdy with each other.
Yes.
And I would be like,
Yes.
you guys, you're gonna break my house. And they're like, okay.
Yeah.
And then they just start, I'm like, I
And
can't.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just
It's
walk away. I can't.
mhm. I came home from QuiltCon and John grew up as a military kid. And so
Mm,
he has this like his lifetime experience up until the age of like 22 was to move every 2 years.
yeah, my
And
husband too.
okay, yeah. So, and I'd be curious to know if your husband does this because John gets weirdly restless kind of at that 2 year interval because we don't move every 2 years. I lived
Yeah.
in the same house for like 20 years. My parents are
Hmm.
still in that house. And I'm like,
Hmm.
I do not feel this same urge of relocation.
No.
But especially if I go out of town for more than a couple of days, he gets really stir crazy and starts doing stuff around the house, which is great. I come home to all the projects done. But I also come home to my house like weirdly rearranged. So I like when I come in from a trip, I will come in and be like, all right, is any of the furniture in the same place? I have no idea what I'm walking. He could have done a full kitchen demo for all I know while I was gone. But one of the things that he did this last time is I came in and we had these lovely ceramic plates that we'd like gotten from my grandmother's house. And
Mhm.
they're of no particular significance other than they're pretty and they happen to exist in her house. And so I
Sure.
inherited them.
Yeah.
And I had tucked them in a closet because children who wrestle, and I was like, we have not yet arrived at an age where we can have nice things. Like all the
Mhm.
nice things are still in boxes and they will resurface eventually.
Yeah.
And he had hung these ceramic plates like over our garden tub,
Oh,
the garden tub that our children love to take bubble baths in. And like these are bubble baths that are like basically a shipwreck in the tub. Like
yeah.
they just, I don't understand how so much water and so many bubbles can go so far.
Yeah.
And I walked in and he was like, "Don't you love it?" And I was like, first thought, yes, it's beautiful. Thank you for wanting to do something to make our home nicer. Second, I'm going to need you to take it off the wall immediately. And he's like,
Yeah.
"Why?" And
You're
I was like,
like,
never mind, we'll just leave it there. First time the kids get in the tub and the bubbles start like creeping up the walls. And I'm like, now do you want to pull those off the wall? He's like, yeah, they're gonna break, aren't they? And I was like, yeah.
uh-huh. They sure are. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. So now they just like live on the counter in the bathroom. I'm like, okay, we tried.
Yeah.
Nice
It's
things will come back eventually.
right. You're like, I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely rough. Well, and we, yeah, my husband grew up moving a lot, and then I didn't really move growing up. Like I moved
Yeah.
like I remember a couple of times, just like once when I was little, because my parents built a house. So we moved into that house when I was like
Hmm.
almost, I think around 4 or 5. And then we moved out of that house when my mom got pregnant with my sister because my two brothers were already sharing a room and I was about to start high school and they were like, we need a
Yeah.
bigger house.
Yep.
So we moved. And then once I was already gone, they moved again. like
Yeah.
to the neighborhood across the street from that neighborhood. And
Yeah.
so I only moved a couple times with them, but when I met my husband, we moved quite a bit until we've lived in this house for like I think it'll be 8 years this summer.
Nice. Yeah.
Finally, but it's also like in an area of town we love. We own it. Like we're
Hmm.
not renting anymore, so it's
Yeah.
like different things. But yeah, he gets a little now instead of rearranging furniture, now he just wants to travel. So I'm like, oh, okay,
Nice.
that's fine.
I'm waiting for that to arrive at our house because
Yeah.
that's my preference. So I'm like, leave my furniture alone and buy me plane tickets.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but yeah, our house used to get rearranged a lot. Or like, we've always had like one bedroom that's kind of like our office or like the
Hmm.
kind of gaming room or whatever, and that's the room that always gets rearranged. But now as I've slowly started taking over the house with my businesses, like
Yeah.
things get stayed they stay put because he can't come in and rearrange my whole setup
Yeah.
because
It's
that
like,
will
that's not
ruin
gonna
my
work.
podcast. Like you can't
Right.
come in and rearrange all my quilting because that will ruin my flow. Like you can't,
Yep.
we started Airbnb in our downstairs because there's like the primary bedroom and the bath
Yeah.
like ensuite bathroom. We just rent that out as an Airbnb. So the whole downstairs has to stay nice. Can't rearrange
Yep.
furniture. It's gotta stay. Like like
Has to match the photos.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh, is this like undoing? No, but now, yeah, now he's like, I gotta go somewhere. I gotta do something. I'm like, well, let's go. Where are we
Let's
gonna
do
go? Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Say less.
Yeah, it's just morphing. And now that the boys are out, like it's a lot easier because now it's just the two of us and we
Hmm.
can go do whatever we want.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So anyway, yeah, it's having young kids is interesting. And I was like teaching when they were in school. And so it was a lot. And I was like,
That
I
is a
don't know
lot.
how people like have babies and are also teachers because I would just want silence on the way home. I've been
Yeah.
hearing Mrs. Oros, Mrs. Oros, Mrs. Oros, Mrs. Oros all day. And then to like get in the car and immediately be like, Mom, Mom,
Mom, mom,
Mom, I'd be like,
mom.
"Ah." But thankfully my boys were really chill and quiet and
That's lovely.
pretty self-sufficient. So it was like I had it really good, which is nice. And then yeah, once I quit teaching, Parker, my youngest was already in high school and like driving himself and he didn't
Yeah.
need my assistance to get to school anymore. So it was kind of a natural progression, but it was nice to have those times, but also be like, wow, I'm so glad. Like I mean, I already didn't want kids, but that just like honestly being a teacher
That,
solidified that
yeah.
like I didn't want to have more children. Like
Yeah.
I'm good with the
You
ones I've got.
you got to have a child role, like a role in a kid's life a different way, like, which is
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like
We do
not
not
just
give enough credit and support to like the teachers and aunties who fill that role of, I don't
yeah.
want kids of my own because I want to support parents in a different way. Like
Uh-huh.
that's so important.
Yeah. Well, and like I'm the oldest and there's a huge age gap as I explained.
Yeah.
And so I was always the caretaker for like
Yeah.
the family because the cousins are same. Like it was me and my one brother. It
Hmm.
was just us because my mom's also the oldest and had
Oh
us
yes.
very young. So her brothers were
Yep.
still in like middle school when we were born.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And so then when she had our other brother, I was 10. And
Hmm.
then people started like then their friends
Yeah.
started having kids. Then my uncles started like were getting married
Yeah.
and having kids. So it was like I'm just so much I'm like more, they're my cousin's parents' generation than I am theirs. And so
Yeah, that
it's
makes
like
sense.
super crazy. They're like, oh, auntie or cousin Sissy she'll babysit. And I'm like, will I? They're like, yeah, you
Will
will. I'm
I?
like, okay. Cool, I guess. So yeah, I just like very,
Yeah.
very young was like, I don't think I want to have babies. Like I love babies.
Yeah.
I love kids. I
Yeah.
love them. But
But you can also then hand them back.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And like,
It's been awesome as my kids have gotten older, that because I was a nanny before we had our kids, and
yeah,
now that they're getting older, I'm like, oh, is this what it's like to get to like be in that auntie role? Like, give me the baby, let me snuggle. Okay, you can have it back now.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
right.
this is a good life. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's fun. Well, and like I just like you said 9 and 10, your boys are.
Hmm.
Oh, that's such a
Yeah.
fun age too, because
It's
they're just
really
like
fun. They're so fun.
yeah. Yeah. I love it. And that's like so exciting. And they're a little more independent, so you can kind of do
Hmm.
more of the stuff you want
Yeah.
to do. And like you said, just let them figure their crap out and then
Yep.
move
Yep.
on.
It's awesome. Like school gets out next week and they're like, "Can we sew with you this summer? Can we marathon train with you this summer?" And I'm like, "Come on, like we're gonna turn this into an adventure." And
Yeah.
I love that. And I feel like I'll loop us all the way back around to quilting. I think that's
Yeah.
like the same kind of energy that like I love building it string and story is
Mhm.
that sense of let's make it fun and let's make it playful and let's let there be that community aspect because it's going to be so much easier to grow our skills with that spirit. I looked up the stat yesterday because I was like, I know I've been misquoting this, but if you're learning a new skill, it takes 400 repetitions on
Okay.
average to achieve mastery unless it's gamified, like unless it's done in like that spirit of play,
Hmm.
and then it's 10 to 20 repetitions. Right? Like that's such a
Interesting.
big difference.
Yeah.
And so I think about that a lot for my students when I'm teaching free motion quilting or when I'm teaching ruler work, the same way that I'm thinking about it for my kids right now. Because I've dubbed this summer the summer of life skills. So they're gonna learn lots of boring things, but we're gonna make it really fun. And
Yeah.
I'm like, how can we make this as community centered, as gamified, as fun as possible to
Mhm.
shortcut that learning curve?
Yeah.
So that you see success.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's such a cool stat to know. Like coming, out of education, and I also got my master's in educational technology
That's
with
awesome.
a
Yeah.
certification in games and simulation.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I
This
was
is
like
right up
learning
your alley.
yeah, so I was like learning to
Yeah,
gamify things, and I like yeah, it's so true that like and you can't gamify every single thing in life, like that's just not possible,
right.
and it's
That's,
not
yeah.
necessary. Like
No,
sometimes life is just boring. You
it
have to
is.
there's things you just have to do no matter what, and you
Mm-hmm.
just have to suck it up and deal with it. But like
Mm-hmm.
but if you can gamify something that you want to learn and you want to do, but then you add that kind
Mm-hmm.
of fun on top of it, it's like yeah, I did see it in the classroom and, kind of wrapping it back to I know you were trying to like grab it back to quilting and I'm
You're
like
good.
teaching. But
My degree is also in teaching, so I'm like,
okay.
I could nerd on that all day
Yeah.
long.
You're like, yeah. So, yeah, but just like making it more playful is just so much more your brain's more engaged.
Mm-hmm.
You're like creating those little dopamine hits. And so your brain is
Mm-hmm.
hanging on to things because it's getting rewarded for completing
Mm-hmm.
something and learning along the way. And like I did some teaching in the UAE with the STEM Revolution company
Yeah.
and teaching the teachers
Mm-hmm.
how to like bring like, engineering design thinking in and like an open
Yeah.
mindset and that kind of stuff and which is so hard in a dictatorship. I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah.
but
Especially if there are cultural, structural,
mhm,
systematized,
right.
fixed mindset approaches to
Yeah.
things. Like, how
Yeah.
do you break through that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
everything was top down dictated by the Minister of
Mhm.
Education, so it's like they're just, like, rote memorizing these
Yeah.
textbooks, taking exams, and then all the responsibilities put on the teachers, and I'm like, "That sucks."
Mm,
There's, like
that's
the
so hard.
desks in the schools that we were working in were covered in just, like the kids drew all over, and they're bored as hell. Anyway,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I showed them pictures and videos of my classroom, my kids
Hmm.
playing games, like, working in
Hmm.
small groups. They're like, "Where's the textbook?" So, like, "We don't have any." They were like, "What?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "We have our standards, and
Right.
then I get to decide what they engage
Hmm.
with based on those standards. Are they meeting those
Hmm.
standards? Absolutely, because look at
Yeah.
what they're doing. They're matching puzzles to their multiplication facts. They are
Hmm.
writing a paragraph using, like an outline that's is called
Yeah.
Oreo, an opinion paper. Oreo is like opinion, reason,
Yeah.
evidence, and then you repeat it as many times
Yeah.
as you need to add the cream. And they were like, "Oh, this is
I
fun."
love
Yeah.
that.
They were just like, "What?" But I'm like, "Yeah, it's more engaging for them. They're enjoying the visual aspect of it, the colors, the different
Hmm.
way to engage with it, and then they remember it better because they had fun." And they're like,
Hmm.
"You can do that?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Do they pass
Yeah.
their tests?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
I have really good scores, and I'm like, "Here's my scores on reading tests.
Yep.
Here's my class scores." I'm like, "Of course, there's bumps and there's kids who have disabilities and that's okay. And but they're still showing growth. Like they're still
Hmm.
growing. And they're like, what the heck? It like blew their minds. But I was
Right?
like, it works. It really truly works. And
Does.
so if you're doing something like quilting and you just keep thinking
Mhm.
like, this sucks, this is so boring, I hate it, this is hard,
Yeah.
it's like, well, why are you
Or
doing
it
it
has
then?
to be perfect or it's not worth doing. Like,
Right.
I think the other benefit of that play mindset is it's a whole lot harder for our inner mean grump or our inner critic to have anything to hang on to. Like
Yeah.
that voice can't break in the same way, which
Yeah.
is so important because I think, and like quilting world, so very female dominated. And I think especially for women, we have a really loud inner critic. Like we have a very
Yeah.
loud, um, self-judgment. And
Yep.
even with something that's supposed to be fun, something that's supposed to be our creative outlet, it's so easy to get caught up in this false metric of perfection.
Yeah.
And so just yeah, finding ways to short circuit that a little bit.
Yeah. No, I love that. And how exciting that your boys want to do that stuff with you. Like,
Yeah,
I think
they're
it's
pretty
fun.
fabulous.
Yeah. That sounds like it. Like, yeah, speaking from experience of having kids who like wanted to do stuff with us and like the hard stuff too. Like my husband did training, physical training with both the boys while our
Yeah,
oldest was trying to get ready to go into basic training so he could be in the Air Force. And
yeah,
like they got up every morning, they worked out and did it. It was like a whole thing with him, even
yes,
though it was hard and they would be like, oh, this sucks. They were still doing it together and loved it. And
yeah.
it was
I mean,
just,
my boys did the bulk of my marathon training with me last year. Like they would
yeah,
get on their bikes and whatever I was running, they were biking. So I'm
yeah.
like, all right, y'all don't need to run 12 miles. That's not necessarily developmentally appropriate, but
Yeah.
biking, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. And it was the same thing. There were days when they were like, we don't want to. And I'm like, okay, you actually don't have a choice. Come
Yeah.
on. And then
Yeah.
half a mile in, they're having a great time.
Right.
Like,
Exactly. It's just getting over that hump of like anticipating like, oh, it's going to be hard work or whatever that
hmm.
kind of negative thought is. But if you just like, I'm just going to start,
Yeah.
and if I
And you
hate it,
get
I'll
out
stop.
there and you're on the trail and like we see something weird,
Yeah.
immediately we're distracted because,
Yeah.
there's a deer or there's a caterpillar or there's whatever.
Yeah.
And it's an adventure. Then it's
Yeah.
all of a sudden a game. What can we find next?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Speaking of adventure, you started String and Story,
Mhm.
and like, where did that, I mean, because
How did
having
we get here?
yeah, like running a business, being a mom, being like having all this other stuff going on, like, yeah, where did the idea come to you and
Yeah.
get started?
So String and Story, like I said, it was an Etsy shop before with a different name, and we rebranded to String and Story as I was doing more t-shirt quilts and moving away from just doing like knitted items and things like that.
Uh-huh.
But I still wanted to keep, I'm like, let's leave this open in case the quilting thing doesn't stick. But also very much starting to latch onto that idea of like community, right? As I was in this season, I was kind of like your mom, that like I had my kids really young and my friends were not having kids. So I was the only one with a baby and like they were all
Yeah.
starting careers and I was home and it was very isolating. And so I started to really find community online as I was meeting more quilters. And I wanted that to be a part of whatever this little thing was that I was
Yeah.
starting to build. So at first it was just a name for an Etsy shop, but then, I fell down that rabbit hole of free motion quilting. And I think in a lot of ways, my ability to pick up free motion quilting came from kind of a perfect storm of skill sets that I did have a background in the arts, but I also had a
Mhm.
background in teaching. So being able to break down a complicated task into smaller communicatable steps, that's a
Yeah.
hard word. Like you know what I meant.
Uh-huh.
Was something that I literally went to school to do. So as I
Yeah.
started figuring out how to free motion quilt and then started getting questions, I very quickly was like, "Ooh, is this the opportunity for like teaching that I've been looking for?" Because I thought I was going to be in the classroom. I thought I was going to be a middle school lit teacher, and like
Yeah.
life took a hard left, in a great way, but still not,
Right.
what was expected.
Yeah.
Um, and but I had these little babies at home, and I stumbled upon a podcast that talked about teaching online, and I immediately was open to this idea, excited by it. I'm like, I have an iPhone, I can acquire a tripod. Like, what is possible? And then
Yeah.
I hit so much resistance so hard, like in the
Really?
quilting world, because at
Oh,
the time, well, you gotta remember, this is several years pre like COVID lockdowns.
yeah.
So at the time, it was very much still the model of like, if you wanted to be a teacher, you traveled and you were on the road 30 plus
Mhm.
weeks a year. And there's still a lot of educators doing that. But that was not an option to me. And I had a
No.
few kind of early invites to try that, that I was just a hard no. I'm like, I have two babies at home.
Yeah.
This is not like my husband works full time outside the house because he didn't start working from home until the lockdowns.
Hmm.
Like, no, I have to be home. And I just decided I was going to try it. I figured between, the free platforms of social media, and I was on, I think, the free MailChimp, list at the
Yeah.
time. So I had an email list, had an iPhone, and I was like, I can basically produce this for nothing but my own like labor.
Yeah.
Let's just see what happens. So I put together what was the very first iteration of Intro to Free Motion Quilting and was running it through a Facebook group. And I had crossed paths with Bonnie Hunter earlier
Okay.
that year
Uh-huh.
because I'd made one of her quilts. She came and spoke locally. We just hit it off. And so we kept in touch. And I kind of tossed out in an email to her, like, if you happen to want to post this on your blog, not really expecting her to, because I'm like, on the one
Sure.
hand, she blogs every day and often will kind of toss fun things, into her posts. On the other hand, like, this is kind of a big ask. I'm asking her to essentially promote my thing.
Right.
Admittedly, the thing was free. So I was like, eh.
Yeah.
And I told John, we were doing dishes, and I said, if I get 10 signups, I will consider that proof of concept. Like, based on, String of Story was so, so, so small. I had, I don't know, maybe 1,000 followers on Instagram, like maybe,
Yeah.
a few dozen people on my email list. It was very small. And so I'm like, if I can get 10 folks to just try this, I'm going
Hmm.
to consider that a success and I'm going to keep iterating. Well, she did put it on her blog and like over 400 people signed up.
Oh my gosh.
Which manually approving 400 people to a Facebook group in like a 24-hour period, by the way, is a nightmare. 0 stars, do not recommend. But it
Yeah.
was worth it because how exciting is that? I was like,
Yeah.
okay, so I may not have fully figured out this teaching online thing yet. And the quilting world may have not fully figured out this like learning online thing yet, but there's a
Hmm.
big chunk of people that are willing to try.
Yeah.
And Bonnie is a very traditional quilter. And so I felt very confident that like the folks who had signed up for this would also represent a wide range of tech abilities.
Yeah.
So I'm like, there's going to be a lot of like folks who are very tech savvy and folks who are not very tech savvy. And if we can
Hmm.
all figure this out together, there's something here. So that became the first iteration of Intro to Free Motion Quilting, which then
Okay.
led to Free Motion Quilting Academy. And so even before the COVID lockdowns, I was already building this online teaching platform kind of on accident. There had not been some great vision plan to
Yeah.
do that. I just knew that I was very quickly falling in love specifically with this free motion quilting step of the quilting process, and
Yeah.
I knew I had the skill set to execute it. So, yeah, it
Wow.
was really exciting.
Yeah. That's so cool. And like, I think people are hungry for learning, and if
Mhm,
they're limited to what's around them physically, or they have
mhm,
to wait for a expensive teacher to come to their town or their
mhm.
guild, like some people just can't do that, And so
Yeah,
having ways to engage with the next step in the quilting phases, if they really want to learn how to do their own stuff, like having access to that even back then is like
absolutely.
so cool. And like
Yeah.
it's like almost every single person I talk to is like, I taught myself how to quilt through blogs. It's like,
Hmm.
so it was there, right? Like
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
the desire to learn, the hunger for something new,
Hmm.
for the next thing was
But there
there.
wasn't a lot of curriculumized opportunities yet. And I think
Right.
that was what was really fun about putting together first FMQA and then RQA, is getting to build a curriculum to go step by step. Because I did the hodgepodge thing, right? Of like a
Yeah.
book here, a blog there, a random YouTube video, this other place.
Yeah.
But being able to go through and help people learn in a way that builds logically
Hmm.
and watch their growth and development, and also build a platform. Because I think it is so fun to be in person with folks learning how to quilt. And
Yeah.
now that my kids are older, I do travel to teach, and it is so fun when I'm in a room with folks and I get to watch it click in real life.
Mhm.
But there's always that danger that when our 3 hours is over, when our 6 hours is over, that they have to go back home and they're going to be on a different machine with different lighting, totally different situation, trying to set up to replicate what we did in class.
Yeah.
And the beauty of an in-person class is that you have this brand new out of the box machine in front of you, and they have put the correct foot on, and there is a machine educator in the room to help. And there's all of this extra support.
Mhm.
But I think taking that and then going home can be a really big leap because you have to be
Yeah.
your own tech support and all of this, that it's easy for what was done in class to kind of fall through the gaps. Like the
Yeah.
scaffolding isn't quite sturdy enough to sustain that trip sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I love being able to work with folks online because they can self-pace and watch a video as many times as they need to. If they have to pause and go get help because something's going on with their machine, or maybe their machine needs servicing, or they have to go acquire the right foot, like they're not going to miss anything. They can just jump
Right.
right back in right where they left off. Um, and I think that's just a really fun opportunity to create, because I think when the challenge is that you have to watch the videos and you have to practice in order to succeed. But
Hmm.
once those things have happened, I think the scaffolding is stronger. I think the lessons stick longer. I think the skills become more applicable to real life
Hmm.
than what I've ever seen achieved or even been able to maybe personally achieve with an in-person class. Like there's something richer about that online opportunity. I'm
Yeah.
a big fan.
Yeah. I mean, and that makes sense because the yeah, that transfer of knowledge, like going back to teaching terms,
Yeah.
like that transfer of knowledge can be so tricky because like what you're saying, if you're learning it in a different environment and then you have to like hold it within yourself and then take it all the way home to
Mhm.
your setup that
And imagine if you do that at
same,
QuiltCon on like
right?
Thursday, and then you
No,
don't get home till Monday and you
right.
have not slept because, as we discussed, sleep is the myth at QuiltCon.
You don't sleep. Yeah, exactly.
It's a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a big fan of online classes. Like I've done a few and yeah, just having the flexibility to do it when I need to do it and to sit in
Hmm.
my space and learn on my machine and figure out the
Hmm.
functionality on my stuff, then it's like, oh, now I could transfer it somewhere else because now I know how
Yeah.
to do it on the things I'm familiar with.
Right.
But if the
Exactly.
whole setting is unfamiliar, it's kind of like, what am I doing?
Hmm.
So yeah, I totally get
Yeah.
that. And it's
Some
just, go ahead.
Yeah, and sometimes it makes that starting process, I think, a little bit slower. I think that's one of the friction points I run into with folks who are, thinking about joining me in online classes, or folks who have signed up and were in those kind of early units,
Hmm.
is it can be a little slow to get started because you have to do all of that your own setup and tech support versus just showing up to a class and it's ready to rock and roll.
Right.
But it's empowering in a different way because you have to actually understand what's going on. Like, why is this foot important? Why are these settings important? Why is this approach to adjusting tension important?
Yeah.
And it's that difference in, really understanding all the dimensions of a thing versus just memorizing a thing, right? And like
Yeah.
being able to really get in it and get all the way around it.
Yeah.
And it allows folks to learn more how, like, according to their learning style, right? They can customize how they're approached. Some folks watch all the lessons all the way through and then go back and try to replicate it. Some folks literally are like, well, they watch 30 seconds and they do that, and then they
Yeah.
watch 30 seconds and they do that, and it's so customizable.
Yeah.
And you don't ever have to worry about someone like weirdly leaning over your shoulder, which I think is a huge bonus.
Yeah. Yeah. And some people get that that anxiety of like having somebody watch them.
Mhm.
And I think it's a fear of just looking stupid or making a mistake. I definitely kind of get that. Like I get that with typing. If somebody's like watching me type, I'm like suddenly I can't spell and I'm
I
like,
all
I'm
of
the
a sudden
world's
I
best
cannot
speller.
type.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
You're like, I promise I know how to do this.
I'm like, stop looking at me. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. So I get that. And like I taught the the rental course at my
Mm.
local quilt shop so people could come rent the long arms.
Yeah.
And so just teaching them to free, I'm like, I would try to like not stare at them because I'm like, I don't want to make them nervous, but I'm also like, what are you doing over there, Brenda? Like,
Like I'm here to help, but I'm trying not to hover.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's that same thing of like, they're like, well, how am I gonna figure this out? Like, how am I gonna remember this? I'm like, come back, like try to schedule time
You
as
have
soon
to
as you
just
can,
keep
come
doing
back.
it.
They're
Yeah.
like, well, when are you gonna be here? So I had like had a lot of my students who'd want to come when I was there so that I could help
Hmm.
them get started again. And so many of them did do that. They just like, okay, I'm like, even if you're just bringing in like a panel with some backing just to get
Yep.
the practice in, like I know it costs
Yep.
money, whatever, you're renting it, but like you're
Just
here
check the boxes.
just
Yeah.
yeah, like that, those hours of practice are going to
Hmm.
matter. And
Yep.
so if you're just throwing some squares together, if you're just doing something real simple and small, it's okay because you're going to come in, you're going to
Yep.
practice loading your quilt
Hmm.
sandwich, you're going to practice setting up a paper pantograph if that's what you want to do, or
Hmm.
you're going to practice your free motion skills on the front side of the machine, and
Yep.
you're going to get those hours and it's going to
Yep.
make more sense the more you do it. And they were
Mhm.
like, okay. And I was just like, I just remember being so scared of the machine and like not really,
Yeah.
because I started long arming so quickly into just learning how to quilt in
Yep.
the first place. Like I didn't really touch a sewing machine until I was like 32. Um, because that was like my mom's thing, I was like, my
Yeah.
mom sews, I don't do that, I crochet.
I love that.
And then yeah, so then but once we learned how to long arm, that's when we're like, screw this, we're getting our own, we're gonna sew
Yeah.
all that. But anyway,
Absolutely.
um
It's kind of addictive once you get over that initial like, but is it going to blow up if I
yeah,
hit the wrong button? Because it
right.
feels so, like I think there's an element that it feels a little bit like driving a car. And
Uh,
when we all learn how to drive, it's very much like, okay, but this is serious business and like could actually be life or death.
yeah.
And I think there's something like in our brains that then we get behind a long arm and it's like just similar enough that our like deep like primordial brain is like, but are we going to die? And
Yeah,
like
yeah,
and convincing our brain like actually like the actual worst thing that could happen is that I like sew over my finger. So if I don't put my fingers near the needle,
yeah,
the like worst case scenarios are actually pretty limited and
yeah,
pretty minor in the
yeah.
grand scheme of like life, the universe, and everything.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think the empowering bit is just realizing that like you're the one, it's just a machine and you're the one who
Yeah.
controls it. Like I'm
Hmm.
the driver. And just
Yeah.
like that same analogy,
Yep.
like I'm like, you're the driver, you're driving that. Like, yes, it's a
Hmm.
sewing machine. Yes, it's moving, the
Yep.
needle's moving. If you stop moving the machine, the needle's gonna stop because the stitch
Hmm.
regulator's on. If you don't want
Yes.
it to be in sewing mode anymore, you click the button and it turns off. Like you are
Yep.
the one who gets to
Yep.
control those things. And they're like, oh, I'm like, it's not going to do anything that you don't tell it to
Mm-mm.
do. And
Nope.
they're, oh, I'm like, come on, let's go. Like,
You
you
got
got this.
this.
And I
Yeah.
think it's like that kind of demographic of like older women who have spent their whole lives thinking that they're less than or like being
Yeah.
told that they're less than. And so when they are doing something, they're like out of their comfort zone, they're doing something that's like
Hmm.
new and kind of scary because it's a big
Hmm.
machine. Oh, I don't want
Yep.
to break it. I'm like, honey, there's nothing you can do to this machine that can't be fixed. Like,
Yeah. You
trust me.
can't. Yeah.
Yeah,
Trust me, whatever you're afraid is going to happen, like I probably already did to the
I've done it.
machine and it
Yeah.
got fixed and
Yeah,
it's fine. Like,
100%. I'm like, worst case scenarios, you just have to share a machine for a little bit until we get the
yep.
problem fixed. Sounds like, but
And
you're
it's
gonna
going to
be
be
fine.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
But that
Yeah.
I like imparting that empowerment to people and like gifting that,
Hmm.
because I'm not giving it to them, but like gifting them the realization that they have it within
Yes.
themselves was
Yeah.
like the best thing ever.
Yeah.
So,
I think we live in like there's so many things in the world, right, that are
yeah.
so hard and difficult and all that right now. But I think something that I am observing that I am kind of obsessed with, and I am just a little like young for this, and I love that because I get to watch it just a little ahead of me, is the conversation around aging, around perimenopause, around menopause, about what it means to be like a woman after 40. That conversation is changing so fast. And I think even just like 10 years ago when I entered the quilting industry, there was still a lot of that, like after 40, like you're kind of invisible. Like after 50, good luck. After 60, like you don't exist, right? Like it was this very like societal, like your
Yeah.
time has passed. which is messed up. And this is why the conversation needs to change. But I think it's so magic to get to watch it change in real time
Yeah.
and see the impact because my students, like many quilters, like they skew older than me by,
Mhm.
anywhere from 10 to 40 to, 50 years or even more. And watching them and soon enough me get to have a whole different story that we get to embrace of
Yeah.
I'm not done yet. I'm never too old. I always get to be the main character in my own life. I can own the pen to this story, whether it's in something as in many ways as like simple as quilting, right? In some ways it's just fabric and thread. In other ways
Yeah.
it's our lifeline,
Right.
all the way to much more serious conversations is so cool. And I'm really excited to see the impact that has on our beloved granny crafts because I think we're
Yeah.
going to get to see this burst of confidence. And I love being I'd like to believe that string and story is part of that narrative changing within our space because that's part of why I call my students the rock stars, right? Is like you always get to be a rock star. And like the qualification for being a rock star is deciding you want to be one. Like it's
Yeah.
that simple.
Yeah.
And writing that permission slip of you get to learn all the things, you get to try all the things, you don't have to be good at it the first time. In many ways, you never have to be good at it. Like if you're
Yeah.
having fun, that's all I actually care about.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. Like sometimes those are the best like people to work with too because they're just so unserious about it. They're not going to take
Mhm.
anything like personally. They're
Yeah.
not going to get all grumpy about something that's like not in their
Yeah.
control. They're just like, "Oh well, it doesn't matter." And they'll just keep going. You're like, "Wow."
It's a quilt. We can make another quilt. Like,
Yeah.
what did we learn here? Let's just carry on from this point forward. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think I strive for that too because I can be such a perfectionist and I like freeze myself up because I'm like, what if I mess it up? And then I'm like, calm down. You can rip a stitch. Like,
You can rip a stitch.
get
Yeah.
over it, bitch. Like, just quilt. Like,
Right.
you know?
Have
And
a
so
good time, dang it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I'm just like, you are gonna have fun.
Yes.
But you
Yeah.
know, it's like I will force it down your throat if I have to my
Mhm.
own self because
Yes.
I just get
Yeah.
so serious. I'm like, I'm a business owner. I need to be. And I'm like, calm down. Like, you did
Oh
this,
my,
you
and
started this because you love it.
yes. Oh, there are seasons of my business that I look back on where I was such a serious business owner. And I
Oh,
look back now and I'm like, oh, bless your sweet little heart. Like, what was that?
that's precious. Yeah.
Like, that outfit looks very uncomfortable. Why are you wearing it?
Why are you wearing a full suit to your quilt shop? Like,
Do I-
honestly.
Did I wear a blazer often for an entire season? Listen, the blazer looked cute and it was actually reasonably comfortable because it was knit, but still, like,
Why? Yeah. For
like,
whom? Yeah.
for whom stuff?
No, for real
But
though.
I
I
wanted to
love
be
that.
serious so badly, but now like, that I don't know. Leslie and I talk about this in the shop a lot, and she keeps looking at me and she's like, I can't wait till you're 60 because you're going to be insufferable in the best way. And I'm like, literally, my goal. Like, if feral is not on my tombstone, I did not do it right.
Right.
And like wanting to write that permission slip for myself, but for my whole community of it, it just doesn't have to be that serious. All the rules are made up, all of
Yeah.
them forever.
Yeah.
Like,
I
and
know.
if we aren't quilting for the joy of it, then what is the actual point? Like, this is not an activity we must do for survival. This is literally a leisure activity. So the whole point is for it to be fun.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that's like, I mean, I had my moment when I very first started and like when I was newer, I was like so snooty about things like, oh, if you don't use this kind of fabric, you're not a real quilter. And like, if
Right.
you don't do this or this, whatever. And I'm like, now I look back and I'm like, oh, calm down. Like, it's
Yeah.
okay.
Like, it's okay.
Okay. Yeah.
You were trying so hard.
Yeah. I think I just like wanted to be taken seriously so badly. I would like
Yes.
look for areas where I could try to find
Yes.
that. And so
Yes.
then, but now I'm like, okay, if
Yeah.
you don't take me seriously, then fuck off. Like, I'll find someone who does, But
Yeah. At,
like,
at this point, I'm like, I'm looking for the people who are going to do the goofy dance move back, not the
yeah,
people who are also wearing a blazer to be so serious.
like raising an eyebrow at me. And I'm like, I'm having a great time. You're not,
Mm, yeah. I listen, I have so much fun at every QuiltCon, but I think QuiltCon Phoenix was the most fun because I
So fun.
decided when I got there, I was like, I'm saying hi to every single person I recognize from the internet, whether they
Yeah.
know me or not. I'm gonna make it weird. And I
Yeah.
will identify my people by who does it weird back. And I had so much
Yeah.
fun. I
Honestly,
met so many people. I got to have
yeah.
so many great conversations, and I was loud and weird and obnoxious the whole time. It was wonderful.
Yeah. I think just like being able to like let that out and just be excited about where you're at and what you're doing is
Mhm.
so fun. And like I got to physically in person meet Erin from Seymour Per Society and Alicia
Yes.
for the first time. I met
Yes.
Emily last year at QuiltCon in person, so that was like so fun. So, but like the four of us, we were like, oh my God, we're together. Like it was just so exciting
Yes.
and so much fun and just like bopping around. And like more people came up to me that were like, I love your podcast. And I was like, yes,
Yep.
I'm so glad you found me. Here's some stickers. Like,
Yeah.
I like create, I want that. Like, to
Yes.
first of all, like, I mean, I would make this podcast regardless because I'm having so much fun. I
Because
love,
you're having a blast, which
yeah,
is the best litmus test.
yeah, exactly. Like I'm having so much fun. I don't care if I only have 10 listeners. I'm still gonna do it. Like,
Yeah.
but the fact that more people are coming up to me, like I had a couple at the, last year's QuiltCon, which was
Mhm.
so great. And I was like so excited. My mom
Yeah.
was there. She's like, that's so cute. And I was like, Mom,
Yeah.
like, thank you. I know. Anyway, um, but then this year to just like have so many more and people that I'm like, I know you like, that I've just been engaging
Yeah.
with online and being able to see them and squeeze them in person and just like
Hmm.
just say hi. Like I'm here. I'm a person and like my most favorite thing ever is when people meet me and they're like, "Wow, you're taller in person." And I'm like, "I know." Like I don't know
That's
why I look short,
amazing.
but I
Oh,
mean,
everyone is always like, why are you so small when they meet me? And I'm like,
I just
because
like
I'm loud.
right. I know the internet is like deceiving. And also, yeah, it's hard to gauge someone's like size.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, but like it's just funny. They're like, wow, you're so much taller than I thought. And I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know.
Okay, now I'm curious, how tall are you? Because I know I met you, but I don't
Yeah.
remember you
I'm
being overly tall.
no, I'm 5'8". I'm not that tall.
Oh,
I
okay.
just think
Yeah.
people are expecting me to be like a shorty. And I'm like, no, I'm a tall girl. Like, I don't know.
No, yeah. Maybe
And
people expect me to be fat. I'm only 5'6", and people are
okay.
always like, wait, I
Yeah.
thought, I'm like, I don't know. I'm just loud. People assume I'm tall because I'm loud.
Yeah. 5'6" isn't
I
short though.
aspire to tallness, but I'm pretty sure I've stopped growing.
No, I know. I'm like, I'm done. Oh. No, it's funny because like my
Bummer.
two closest friends here locally, like they're taller than me. So I'm the short friend. But
Yeah.
then when I was at QuiltCon with Emily and Alicia and Aaron, I was the tall friend because they're all
Yep.
shorties. And I was like, wow, this is so weird being the
This
tall
is
friend.
weird. Yeah.
I haven't been the tall friend since I was a kid. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah. That's
So
amazing. Yeah,
anyway,
I was
it was just
always one of
funny.
the short friends because my friends growing up were all like 5'11". Like I
Yeah.
had very tall friends growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
like, hello.
I know my two besties are like 5'10", 5'11", and 6 foot. So I'm like,
Yeah.
hi girls. And then
It's
yeah.
great to see you too.
Yeah. So it's fun. It's fun when I get to be the tall one for once. I'm like, huh, I am tall.
That's all right.
Yeah, it's so silly. But anyway, yeah, seeing people in person is just like so much fun. And I think however you show up to something, whatever it is, whether it's in person, like in a big event or just in your own sewing room, however you show up to that thing is how things are going to go. And like,
Yeah,
if you're sitting
agreed.
down and you're like, "Ugh, I guess I'll sew today, like this is probably going to be so hard and da da da, like you're going to have a bad
Yeah,
time. But if you sit down and you're
absolutely.
just like, I'm going to learn what I learned from this and I'm going to get out of
Hmm.
it what I put into it and just like do it, then I feel like you're opening yourself up to more possibility for
I
cool
agree.
things to happen. Because I think if
Yes.
you close your brain off, like we know with fixed versus open mindset,
Yep.
like you the
I feel like
the
we need a teaching terms glossary for this episode now.
like
Of like,
sorry guys,
welcome to our education crash course.
welcome to the
We got
teacher club.
excited.
Yeah. Oh my God, the acronyms used to kill me.
Oh, there were so many.
I was
Oh,
like, the
yeah.
what? I'm like, I'd have to like Google stuff because I'm like, what are these? They're like, oh, the NSAID or like the
Yeah.
oh, that's
All the
a
things.
drug.
Yeah.
The MSTC, and I'm like, the what? And they're like, oh, did you take the MLIT? And I'm like, I literally don't know what you're
Yeah.
talking about. Like, I
Yeah.
would literally have to like look stuff up, or I'd be like, what are you talking about? And they're like, oh, this. I'm like, how was I supposed to know that?
Right.
They're
Because
like,
they're
well,
they're not like norm.
no.
Yes.
no.
Agreed.
Anyway, it was just, but it would be bonkers. And so I would start to do it. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna like explain what everything is all the time because I hate acronyms. Like it drives me nuts. And so when people do it, I'm like, nope, nope, don't do that.
Yeah, welcome to, my courses where we have acronyms for
I
everything
know. And
now.
then I'm like, oh, the NYGQS, like, oh, this
Yeah.
is SPDC. That's my like my quilting company is
Yeah.
Sweet Pea Design Company. So I'm like SPDC, and I'm like, I'm doing it. Whatever,
You're
it's
like,
fine.
you're like, I've come full circle.
It'd be super cool if I stopped naming things with like 65 names in the title, but
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
Can't do it. Can't.
See, I was spared the acronym for string and story because S&S is a cafeteria. And I was
Oh.
like, yep, no.
Plus, string and story, it's like super, it's not like a
It's
mouthful to say.
Bobby.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. It's not any more of a mouthful than like my first name. So I'm like, well, pick
Yeah.
your poison.
Yeah. 3 syllables. It's fine. I don't know. Four
It's
syllables.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, for sure. That's great. Oh my God. I just think it's so funny. Like the things that we get ourselves into, like with naming stuff and trying to figure out like, and it was like so funny going back and forth, like trying to name the podcast and the business, like just all the different iterations of things. It's like, okay,
Yep.
what's another like quilty thing we could come up with? And it's like, oh, that's taken.
Right.
Oh, that's taken. Oh, that's
Hmm.
taken. And I was like, I don't know.
Every mid-level pun gone.
Yeah. Like,
Like,
can't do that. Like, yeah, exactly.
yep.
And so you just have to go like off the path of that. But then at the same time, you're like, is this gonna like
Will people
translate? Are
remember
people
this?
gonna
Yeah.
know? Yeah. Yeah. And like
Yeah.
thankfully with like there are so many Sweet Pea design iterations out there, and I feel so bad because I'm like, but my mom was like dead set on it because that's like what her grandma called her, and like
Oh, that's so
what she
sweet.
called me growing up. And so it's just kind of like a family thing. And she had like
Yeah.
decided, she's like, I want my business to be called this. And we were like,
Yeah.
okay. And
Okay. It's a pretty good name though.
yeah, it's pretty cute. And so I do get mistagged a lot. And people are like, oh, I got
Oh,
this floral bouquet from Sweet Pea Design Company. I was like, hey, babe, I didn't send that to you. Like, you
yeah.
don't
You're
want to
like,
tag the
wrong
right
one. Try
person.
this other
Yeah, I'm like,
one.
I just want, credit to be given where it's due. Like, I don't want to be taking, taking
Yeah.
people's credit where it shouldn't be. And they're like, okay. And then it's like, there's an embroidery, a pretty like big name
Mhm.
embroidery, and their Instagram handle is different. Like, I have Sweet Pea Design Company. Like, that's mine.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, it's just funny. I'm like, oh, this is like, you just don't really think about it.
All the little adventures.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so funny. But um, okay, so you have so many classes. Um, and so people can take them in person if they're in your area.
Sort of. So I offer like intro and foundation level classes in
Okay.
person occasionally. So I teach them at
Okay.
shows more often. We
Okay.
teach them once or twice a year in the store. And then the
Okay.
full length courses are only online because like
Okay.
FMQA is 12 weeks long. So that
Oh
is
wow.
way more than anyone would ever want to come into the store week after week after week and work
Yeah.
on things. But I do always tell folks if they're local to me or if they're in the area during shop hours, folks are always welcome to come in and ask me questions in person if they want to bring their machine and set up in the shop and just practice in person. Because some people like that teacher over my shoulder holding my hand, as we were talking about.
Right.
So there's always the opportunity for that if folks are local, but it's not at all required in order to successfully complete the course.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
That's awesome. Well, and I think sometimes like being in person, like, because then if you got somebody, a class of people tied to your shop for 12 weeks at a time, like, where, are
right.
you supposed to go do the stuff you want to do?
Oh,
Like,
right, exactly. And it makes more sense to be able to go at their own pace with the videos and then
yeah.
have things like we do a live Q&A each week. So I think, we talked about some of the big roadblocks to in-person classes. I think one of the big stumbling blocks with an online class is, but what if I get stuck? How do I get help?
Yeah.
So we've circumnavigated that in two ways. So one is we have our online community, which at this point has literal thousands of course like students and graduates in it. So there's always someone online, which is
Uh-huh.
awesome. But I also do a live Q&A every week. So there's always a very finite amount of time that someone might be going, waiting for the answer to a question,
Yeah.
so that we can get folks unstuck and keep them moving. Because I know when I was doing the like cobble things together online, there was more than once that I was like, I have a question, but like I don't know who to ask. Like,
Yeah.
will they respond if I email them? Do they want me emailing them questions? Like, is that more
Right.
support than they offer for a free video out on the interwebs? And so
Right.
actually creating that support, and they have the same lifetime access to that that they do to my classes,
Okay.
I think makes a big difference. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, because yeah, the bonus to in person is that you can ask a million questions right there. You've got the
Hmm.
person right there to help you. And then yeah, online you're like, is this person gonna answer my question right now? Because
Hmm.
I don't want to get stuck. But like, yeah, if there's like
Yeah.
such a great resource of like people who could talk you through something
Hmm.
or help you that have already
Hmm.
gone through it or they're in it right now and they're like,
Yeah.
oh, I solved that. Here's how you
I
can.
figured that out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I asked that last week, and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that just speaks to how important community is, as a whole, because
Hmm.
even whether you're in a classroom or online, like the other people in the room, everybody has a little bit of different experience or different, perspectives on things. And so it can be just that, like the students can answer each other's questions and help you out. And hopefully it's in the correct way because sometimes you're like, no, 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 actually that's wrong. Like, don't do that.
let
But
me let me try again.
yeah, but then
Yeah.
you're like, then you can address those misconceptions too and say, oh,
Hmm.
actually, I want to talk about this because this is like a really
Hmm.
common thing. And don't get stuck in this spot,
Hmm.
thinking this way, or
Yeah.
to like, I don't want you to trap yourself in this weird position, because it
Right.
does happen. But, when those things come up, it's just like further like, okay, this is how I can improve how I deliver my materials. But at the same time, there's some things that are just like,
Yeah.
unless a person just like really, really knows their way around their own machine and like the concept of like quilting
Hmm.
in general, it's like people just like make silly mistakes. They're like, why would you think that
Yeah.
that's a thing? Like,
Well, and there's a lot of, I think with I've encountered it less with ruler quilting, but with free motion
mm,
quilting especially, there's a lot of myth
yeah,
out there of like things you have to have or things you have to do in order to
mm,
be successful when there's a lot of things that are optional.
yeah,
So like one of the big ones I run into is like you have to drop your feed dogs. And then of course people folks are like, but my machine, the feed dogs don't drop. So like now I can never free motion quilt. And I'm like, first of all, you don't have to drop your feed dogs. Like on many of my machines, I do literally nothing. I just change the foot and I'm off to town.
yeah,
But even on machines where, maybe that's not a great solution for one reason or
mhm,
the other. Um, Instead of dropping your feed dogs, you can set your stitch length to 0. And then your
yeah,
feed dogs don't move because all
right,
they're doing is moving at a regular interval, right?
right,
Um, so there's lots of little workarounds or just other options of ways to do things. Or, folks will be like, oh, but I need that, slider thing underneath, or my quilt's never going to move. And I'm like, I actually really hate those
yeah.
because I've quilted it to the back of my quilt far too many times.
Ooh,
And I'm
yeah,
like, that's a lot of money to end up in the trash when it like slides and
yeah.
gets quilted to the back, right?
Oh my
I'm like,
gosh.
instead, here are some other options for like how we can make that surface smoother. How can we support the quilt so that it's going to move more freely? So,
Yeah,
yeah, there's so many things that can counter those myths, and being able to share those, and now having, a community full of people that have heard a lot of my tips and tricks along those things and have heard that same permission slip of, I don't like Supreme sliders. I rarely drop my feed dogs. And honestly, I rarely even bother putting my stitch length at 0. And yet, somewhere in my community, there is someone who swears by her decision to use a Supreme slider to drop her feed dogs and to set her stitch length to 0. And I'm like,
right,
that's awesome. Like,
right,
if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like, if this
right.
is working for you, this is what's worked for me. And the beauty is that we all get to try and experiment with all of those things. And
Yeah,
again, that's the kind of stuff that is just far beyond the scope of an in-person class. I can't sit there and
mhm,
talk through the 75 feed dog options at the beginning of a 3-hour class. Like that will be the class, and then everyone will
right,
be bored and disappointed.
right.
But when we're online and we have a lot more opportunity, a lot more time, I
Mhm.
can present a lot more resources so that folks can figure out exactly what works for them in their machine, and talk to other folks in the community who have their same machine and find out what has worked for you. Because what works for me on a Burnett or on a Juki or on a Handy Quilter might
Yeah.
not be what works for someone, on a Pfaff, on a Janome, on a Brother, right?
Yeah.
Like, Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's knowing your machine and yeah,
Hmm.
there's so many different ways to accomplish the same kind of end goal, right? And so I think you're right. Just
Yeah.
like having that community that can help support that and feed that conversation and just reassure one another that like it's gonna be fine, you'll figure it out. And
Yeah.
so that would be like that is such a cool bonus of having that kind of online community. So well,
Yeah.
gosh, well, okay, so I want to encourage people to go check out your website.
I would love that.
You are a Badass Quilters sponsor, so if you
Hmm.
are in the community, there are sometimes
Hmm.
special discounts. I know I offer
There is a code. Yep.
to the Badass Quilters community members, you get a special discount. But other than that, you've got your online shop, you've got a blog with awesome
Hmm.
information and tips and tricks. You've got the digital classes and yeah, I just want people to go check out your stuff because I love like I've loved
Yeah.
encountering you at QuiltCon and seeing your setup and just seeing how enthusiastic you are and like I think it does make a difference when a teacher has a teaching background, like a quilt teacher has a teaching background, because then
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I notice, it's like you can notice the flow and that and it makes
Listen,
me
the only thing that booth was missing was a bulletin board with a big sheet of paper on it.
with some borders. Yeah, yeah,
Oh my
for
gosh, I
sure.
was teaching about basting this morning on a live on Instagram, and I was like, if you've ever done a bulletin board,
Yeah.
it's just like that. I need you to go up the middle and out to the sides. Bubbles are the end of the world.
You will not survive.
And I'm like, if you have not done a bulletin board, you now think that I'm a little nuts. But if you know, you know.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's so funny. I love that. Well, I have just loved having this conversation with you and getting to know more about you, but I want to know if you have a tip or piece of advice that you would love to share with our
Ooh,
listeners.
yeah. I mean, I think we've done a really wonderful job covering it already, which is like the biggest tip that I can give to anyone is to give themselves permission to have fun and learn something new. And
Yeah.
don't be afraid of it not going well. I think as grown-ups, we don't often do totally new things, right? We've
Yeah.
used lots of teaching terms during our time together, and we've used that
Yeah.
word scaffolding. And like everything that we learn it by taking something new and integrating it with something we already know and building on existing scaffolding. But there's stuff with quilting, I think, especially when we get into free motion quilting and ruler quilting, that we have fewer things in our day-to-day life maybe to scaffold those skills to.
Yeah.
And I make the comparison to handwriting a lot and whatever, but it's
Hmm.
rare as adults that we learn a skill that is so new in so many ways, and that can feel really scary, it can feel overwhelming, it can feel like we're not good enough if we don't get it right the first time. And I think
Yeah.
releasing that and tapping back into that, in many ways, that childlike joy of like, let me just play and see what happens. Let me channel that energy of a fresh pack of markers and a whole ream of printer paper, and let's just see where we end up. Um, whether that's with free motion quilting, whether it's with another technique, I think we all need more of those joy units in our lives.
Yeah, I agree. I love that so much. And thank you for sharing that because I think it's easy to forget like, oh, the whole point is to enjoy
Hmm.
is to enjoy. And like obviously there's
Hmm.
hard stuff, whatever, but like if you don't have any
Always.
joy units, like you're saying, in your life, it's hard to work through those hard spots. So
Yeah. Joy
anyway,
is an act of resistance.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you again so much. Everyone
Yeah.
can go to stringandstory.com to find your website and they can find you on Instagram as String and Story as well
Yep.
and see all your cool stuff. And yeah, we'll stay in touch.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.